All right. Welcome, everyone, to the Lead Generation World Podcast. My name is Michael Faree. I'm your host today, as usual. Thank you for joining us today. We're sort of on this trend of doing these all live, which is, I think, a lot of fun. And frankly, most of the time when we would do these podcasts, there wouldn't really be any edits anyways. But this gives people a chance to participate along with me and ask questions and just kind of get involved in the conversation, which I think is a lot more fun. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can go ahead and say hi to us if you want in the comment section. Let us know you're there. And then also feel free to jump in and ask any questions of our guests today and, be a part of the conversation. I think that's what makes this fun and certainly more enjoyable for everyone. So, without further ado, I do want to introduce our two guests, but I do also want to mention one important news item. Many of you may have noticed that we have postponed the Lead Generation World London event, the physical event, until next year. It's unfortunate, but the way things are going, it just didn't seem like it was going to be possible to actually plan a physical event until further down the line. So we're going to do that, but the good news is we're going to have a virtual event in the end of May. Now, I'm generally not a big fan of virtual events. I just don't think they have necessarily the same value. But the content that we have set up and ready to go is extremely valuable. We're going to bring in experts from around the world to talk about best practices around lead gen, and not only lead gen, but lead management. So you'll be able to hear from top companies across the world that are doing things the right way, and have be a part of discussions that we need to have as an industry to create more trust and more transparency in the space. Plus, we also do a really cool thing where we have speed networking. We allow an hour of networking where you get on your computer and cam, and we rotate people every 5 minutes with each other. So it's a really cool way to meet new prospects and new partners within the industry. So keep an eye out for that. It's not live on the website yet, but it will be in the next, I'd say, week. So keep an eye out for that. Okay, so without further ado, let's bring on our two guests. We've got Carol Kellner, who is the Senior Client Development Manager over at CJ Affiliate. And then we also have Alex Higson, who is the Account Director at Conversant Europe, which is a CJ company, I believe. But let me bring them on here. Hey, Alex and Carol. Hey. It's a pleasure to have you guys here again with us.
Hey.
Okay, so give me the lowdown. I know I know there's like a conglomerate of companies under one umbrella, right? So you got Conversant and you got CJ Affiliate, all basically the same, right?
Yeah. Well, we're all the same as that. We're all part of Publicis Group, so we're all one big happy family. Yes.
Yeah.
You nearly got it right as well, Michael.
Yes, you're so close as well.
I knew I was going to screw it up, but okay. So you've got Publicis, and then what's the difference between Conversant and CJ Affiliate?
Well, I think Conversant doesn't exist anymore, doesn't it, Alex? Officially.
Well, they've actually dropped the Conversant name now. So
okay.
It's now
Epsilon,
Conversant, which we have discussed before, like on the previous podcast. But they deal with sort of back-end CRM activity and email activity, and we were all part of the same group. So Epsilon, Conversant, and CJ, and now we're all we were purchased by Publicis Media a year and a half ago, and we moved over to there officially sort of Q4 2019, and there's been a lot of shifts internally and a lot of name changes and what have you, but officially we've now moved over as a lead gen team to CJ.
Okay, well,
and now we're part of CJ Affiliate, so
it may be about time to update that LinkedIn profile of yours.
Well, Well, did you read that off Alex's LinkedIn? I think Alex is up to date. He would have changed.
You still got conversing up there.
Is it still conversing on that?
I think maybe because what LinkedIn does, it automatically pulls in the info from the company name, so it might be our official company LinkedIn is not yet updated. Could that also?
You're so nice. You're so nice, Carol.
Yeah.
You're trying to
good save, Carol.
It's a team effort. Yeah, it's a team effort. It's a team effort.
Hey, I blame the people at the top who keep buying each other and changing our roles and changing our status. So, yeah, not my fault. Hands up.
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Well, it's good to have you guys back. Last time we spoke, I think, I don't know, was it 6 months? Was it that long ago? 3-4 months ago? I don't know.
It was. I think when lockdown was starting. Yeah, 6 months ago. Yeah.
So that in like COVID time, that's like 10 years ago.
Yeah, no, that's like when we thought it was. Yeah, that's when we thought it was just going to be 2 weeks, and then we're all going to be back to normal.
Yeah. Well, so what's the deal there? You were telling me a little bit about it before we went live. I kind of want to get the lowdown on what was just announced over there because, like I just said in the intro, we have our conference that we're, now going to postpone because there just wasn't any end in sight into the regulations over there. So what's this current status now?
Well, again, it's like a load of information that has come out, but who knows whether it's going to actually happen or not, as it's been proposed by the government. But at the moment, we're still in heavy lockdown. But they've just released yesterday the roadmap of what it looks like for us to come out of that lockdown. And there's going to be like a sort of staged approach to that. So schools are going to be going back to normal as a priority, and then there's going to be
I think hairdressers next.
Gyms opening, pubs and restaurants opening again.
I just want to say it's pubs, then gyms at the end. The last thing is gyms opening up. That's the funny part as well.
Yeah, I don't know how they do the hierarchy of what, because it doesn't seem to necessarily follow
logic.
Yeah, I was gonna say even science, necessarily. I don't know what the stats are there, but I mean, you kind of would think that gyms would be filthy, but the fact of the matter, just because sweating and all that, touching everything. But the last I heard, is that there really is not a large because they're cleaning them so much. They're going in and cleaning and doing all that kind of stuff. But anyway, yeah, hairdressers, which obviously you two guys concern more about than I do.
Hair washers, head washers for you.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I think the 21st of June is going to be the last date when everything is going to go back to normal, apparently.
Yeah.
So the UK has kind of gone a bit nuts over the last 24 hours. And as soon as pubs and restaurants are open, which I think is sort of mid-April, we're allowed to meet a group of 6 outside. So you can't meet indoors. So there's been a frantic rush to book places with outdoor space. So I've been part of that as well. I was trying to look for space at various different places in London, and everything is booked up already. So it's quite crazy.
It's all I know. The last day before lockdown, it was so many people out. So this is going to be pandemonium. It's going to be madness on the streets here. It's just going to be.
Oh, so it's not you haven't entered into that right now. And when does it happen?
Well, we're in lockdown now, but the pubs and restaurants are going to be open outdoors from the 12th of April, I believe.
Oh, okay, got it. Yeah.
But they're doing a staged approach. So every month there'll be another set of rules that are going to be open again. Groups of people that can meet outside are going to grow, and then finally at the end of it, by 21st of June, fingers crossed, we'll be back to some sort of normality, and clubs are open from the 21st of June.
That'll be big.
So it's going to be quite mad in London, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, good. I mean, hopefully this is the final stretch, of all this for everybody and you guys. And you guys have the vaccine. Everyone, is that going out smoothly? The vaccine?
Yeah, they said it's being rolled out, and if you can, I think they said by June, if you want to get it, you can get it. I think it's going to be very widely available.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the idea being is they want everyone vaccinated by July. I think that was what they were saying. But yeah, the rollout at the moment is going really well. My dad has got it. over the last couple of weeks. So it's about 15 to 20 million people I think they've vaccinated so far.
That's great.
It's a pretty good feat. But we'll see. Other countries sort of need to get to the same place for us to be able to like move around freely, right? So it's kind of like, yeah, we have the vaccine, but can we actually like go to different countries and travel and that type of thing?
Yeah. Are you guys? How often do you guys work with international companies?
Oh, quite a bit, pretty much. I would say, yeah, pretty much half our clients always have a other geo other than the UK live with us. So I think quite frequently.
I mean, it's probably obvious to say, UK and US are probably, big staples. But what other countries are you guys seeing more and more business coming from, out of curiosity?
Germany,
Germany,
right? Germany, France, like I think the core geos, right? Pretty much, and also like some smaller geos like Italy as well. Compared to the size of the other markets, but and also I think for us specifically, also Australia and New Zealand, I would say.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Australia, definitely. We're seeing for our streaming services activity is absolutely smashing it this year, which is quite strange because they're the ones that are living the normal life at the moment. They seem to be having going back to normal much quicker than other countries. Yet our streaming services activity is doing well. But then we're sort of building that out to other subscription-based activities as well, which are going to be going live fairly soon in Australia. So that is the key standout for me, definitely, is Australia as a market, because we didn't really have much in terms of activity there probably over the last 5 to 10 years, whereas now in the last year or so it's grown like exponentially. So that's been like the standout from my end for sure.
Is there like a country? Is there is there a big education gap, with or understanding gap of the affiliate space and how it works when you guys are in Europe or Germany and France and Italy, or are they pretty much up to speed as on what's how things work?
You mean in terms of clients?
Yeah, just in terms of clients, like, is it if you were to talk to somebody in the U.S. and they know affiliate marketing, they understand the mechanics of it, they understand the all the aspects of the process, so to speak. Is there sort of an education gap, an understanding gap when you go to Germany or France or Italy or Australia on the process that you guys are doing? Do they get it?
I think I think there's an education even like in the UK still. Not to the same level, of course, but definitely there's still people that we talk to that necessarily don't understand lead gen or haven't touched affiliates before, and there's always that sort of initial educational piece that we get to. I think more so it's more like a terminology thing. So like if we throw lead generation out or affiliates out, it might not necessarily mean the same thing to a client that what we are talking to them about. So that's why we do a lot of training on like picking apart and asking them questions and really drilling down into like what they believe to be either affiliates or lead generation specifically. But certainly in the US, like CJ affiliate is massive in the US. It's a US company through and through. So it's more when we're into those conversations with certain clients, it's more likely that they've heard of CJ affiliate in the US market, but also it's still big in the UK as well, and it's one of the long-standing affiliate companies, which puts us in good stead. So I was actually on a call earlier before this, and the client said, "Oh yeah, I've used CJ before. It was about 15 years ago when he had a business." So it's one of those like long-standing companies that we can talk about, but it's obviously shifted like over that time. But certainly, like, it doesn't really matter which like market we're talking to. There's always going to be that educational piece to it. But that might differ, like with the conversations that Carol's having.
No, I think I would say that the main bit is always the terminology. Like, a lead generation might mean something else to somebody else, just, and obviously when you're speaking with different languages, right, different dialects, it also kind of creates some issue with how people define stuff. Like, for example, I had one client say, "Oh, we don't do lead generation. We never done it." And then I kind of went on his website. I showed him, an email capture on his website, and I sent him, "This is lead generation." He was like, "Oh, that's cool. Yeah, we want to do more of that." So I was just like, if I didn't send him that picture.
What do you think he thought lead generation was?
I think maybe it probably has to do maybe with some organic people finding his site. He was like, "Oh, I just want people to find me." But I'm like, well, we can drive that traffic. We can give you what you want. Ultimately, if people find you, you want them to sign up to your newsletter or just leave some kind of a indicator that they're interested, right? Some kind of intent. So he just didn't connect the two and two together, right? Versus we can actually do that for you. And I visually showed it to him and he was like, "Oh, yes, let's do more of this." So yeah, that's kind of my case. It's more terminology and there's visualization. Because obviously we work with numbers and emails and we don't really see a lot, but I can actually show you what lead generation is. So.
Yeah, I'm curious to know, Alex, what you like. I don't know if there's anything specific, but when you talk to people, and you mentioned an example of lead gen as well, like the definition of what that is. What do you think what have you come across an example of someone's incorrect definition of lead generation? You know what I'm saying? Like, what do they think it is?
Like, or how about how badly to describe lead gen?
There's so many like sort of different terms for it. I guess it's new customer acquisition, email activity, like simple email. So that example that you mentioned, Carol, with someone collecting a newsletter on their website, which let's say 99% of companies are doing at the moment and building their CRM, we consider that lead gen. But if we talk to a company, they would just say, that's just generating email addresses. So that's the slight sort of difference, even down to like metrics as well. Like some people consider CPA, so cost per acquisition, as CPL, and vice versa. Like sometimes they say CPL when actually they mean like a paid service. So that's why it's so important, like those initial discussions, really to like pick that apart and really understand like what that client is talking about and what their different sort of terminologies are.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because you're right. Sometimes there's level of intent of what people think a lead is, right? So, like a newsletter sign up, man, I guess you could call that a lead.
I would say, a newsletter sign up, you clearly showed more, intent about wanting to find out more about the brand, right? So I think that's literally, I would say 30% there in terms of on a funnel of buying, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And then you got people who go, well, no, a lead is when they actually say call me or reach out to me beyond with regards to the information.
Well, I get some clients saying, "Oh, a lead to me is a person that buys." And I'm like, well, you know what I mean? Like, again,
it's a darn good lead.
That's a really good lead, right? I can get you somebody that,
no, I'm curious. So another thing too, you mentioned, and you told me this last time, but refresh my memory with the streaming services, Alex, that you were talking about in Australia. What are those what is it?
So it's a British content streaming service. So you can imagine it doing quite well over in the US in Oz, because they love watching that stuff. And we're actually running it in the UK as well, and it's performing really well in the UK. So yeah, at the moment, like it's one of our top performing campaigns, and it's opened a lot of doors with other streaming services, because I know Carol was having quite a few conversations with different websites based around like sports streaming or sort of arts and entertainment as well is something that we are looking into. So like drilling down into who we can work with, but then also understanding which markets are working really well as well.
Is the service a company service that you guys are promoting, or is it you guys have more? CJ Affiliate has more involvement in the creation of the streaming service.
So we are promoting their service.
Got it.
So with a lot of streaming services and subscriptions, that doesn't have to just be, your Netflix or your Amazon. They usually offer some sort of free trial, whether that be 30 days or 30% off or some sort of like incentive. So what we are doing is promoting that free trial to the audience. And then we're pushing them further down the funnel to the website, and then they're signing up for that free trial directly on the client site. So it's not necessarily we're getting involved in like the sort of weeds of the activity itself and the client itself. We're more promoting that opportunity and that message to the specified audience, and then driving those subscriptions and sign up for the client.
Because the client, because I think the channel mix is important with this client, because obviously I get retargeted by their ads quite a lot. So they do a lot of display, they do a lot of awareness as well. And we're like another channel, facilitating that activity.
Got it. And just to be clear, Alex, you're on the marketing side of things, right? And Carol, you're more on the client side. Is that correct or?
No, well, maybe you want to go first, Alex.
Yeah, so I guess it's an all-encompassing role for both of us, really. But we're both client-facing. Okay. So we focus on the business development side of the lead gen part of CJ, but we sit like within the wider BD team. So like we sit with the affiliate BD managers and execs as well. But our focus mainly is lead generation. And going out to our clients, going out to agencies to pitch that and those capabilities to clients. So we have separate marketing teams that we work with, but because we are quite a small team and we have a lot of clients and new business coming through the door, we kind of have to dip our toe into a lot of different things. So that might be like client development or more account management, or it might be tech, or it might be marketing, as you mentioned. So it's very much like you have to be a bit of a spider and work in lots of different ways, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to understand, like when you say you go to Australia, New Zealand, and are you looking for new clients to bring their products to, or are you looking for publishers in those areas to run the offers that you guys have currently?
So yeah, publisher recruitment is a big part of our role, because obviously we also, while me and Alex are on the sales side, we sell in the campaign, but then we also have to plan the campaign, right? We're also involved in the media planning and obviously buying and speaking to publishers. That's why obviously having publishers in the geos our clients want to work in. Like for example, the streaming client was very keen on Australia and New Zealand, so we had to procure publishers in those geos, right, that had databases of emails and audiences we wanted to target. So the recruitment side is very big as well. So because obviously publishers, you're only as good as your publishers in lead generation, right?
Yeah.
If you 100%. Are a network like us.
Yeah, definitely. What campaign? Actually, you don't have to tell me necessarily a campaign, but you can. What's the biggest payout right now for a cost per lead? And you're on the system. Do you any idea?
I think I recently got a campaign recently for a U.S. insurance client. So basically, they want to collect quotes about income insurance in the U.S. So like the payout for that is probably around the $27 mark, $25 to $27. I'm giving it out for. So and it's targeting people in the U.S. that are interested in income insurance. So pretty wide targeting, so that's, I would say, my campaign currently.
Yeah, that's a good payout.
If anybody's interested, obviously, if you have any people with data in the US or potential publishers, like we will happily speak to them and maybe get them on this campaign, right? So if you have people that are listening that want to get in touch, that'd be as well, we can test new data.
Yeah, it's similar for me as well, like finance. And that vertical always warrants higher CPLs. B2B as well. So I've kind of got both aspects at the moment. I'm talking to one of our clients about a different part of their business, but it's focused on B2B data and promoting like a finance message. And it's specifically through FCA approved publishers. So it's very specific targeting. And it has to be watertight in terms of the data. So that is always going to warrant a much higher CPL. And at the moment, that is looking like sort of 150 to £200 CPL. So quite meaty in terms of the activity and the rate itself, but in terms of the targeting and like what they're trying to do, it does make sense because the audience is much smaller, and the amount of scale that we can get with the publishers is much smaller. So
yeah, no, definitely. And then I put your email up here just in case people want.
Yeah. No, I mean, because we work across all campaigns, so if Alex's campaign sounded interesting, we can always have a chat about it. We're always keen to secure new publishers, right? Because obviously we always want to keep new publishers coming in, new data sets, new publishers run stuff differently, right? There might be a new cool way of running activity, so we're always keen to to speak to people.
I'm curious. So on that note, I'm curious. Like, you guys have been doing this for a while. Is the pool the pool of affiliates always changing, or are there really the same main guys in the industry doing the same thing? Does that make sense? So that you've got your top maybe 20%, and then the other 80%. Is it always rotating, or is it?
I would say obviously just in the UK market, because obviously that's where I've been around as well in the US. I think the quality people, you always have the same top guys because they just do quality work, and then you have like maybe the bottom 50% that just kind of rotate with new guys, new companies, right? Constantly new data sets, right? So I think that the top guys stay at the top because they're good, and then you have like the kind of the lower level guys that kind of rotate. At least just from what I noticed.
And that rotation, I mean, what kind of leash do you give these guys? I mean, if you bring on somebody new, they probably go through a test phase of some sort, get on a campaign, and you guys are probably monitoring them pretty closely to see what quality is going on, right? How does that sort of work for a new publisher coming on board?
Okay.
Well, I mean, for us, usually it depends on the campaign, right? So we need to line up what their audience is.
Mm-hmm.
And then we obviously match that up with the campaigns we have that are live, and we have kind of budget available. Like, we always like to leave a few, maybe 10% of the budget for testing new sources and new publishers, right? So once we have that in line, then we speak to the publisher. We kind of outline the campaign. We let them live. We let them do a trial period, deliver their allotted cap, and then we obviously monitor if they're sticking to the approved messaging, right? They're using the right copy. They're running it via approved channels, and then we kind of decide, okay, how's the quality? We speak to the client, is there any issues with the data? And then obviously if that passes, then we can look to onboard them onto more campaigns, right? Maybe some of our tier 1, tier 2 campaigns, right? If they kind of keep doing well.
Like the quality of the data is paramount. So like if you can get that right as a publisher or as a lead provider in an affiliate network like CJ, then the revenue is going to come, because there's so many publishers out there that don't do that, and they just focus purely on that campaign within a month and generating that revenue within that short period of time, rather than thinking more longer term, like, okay, let's build a relationship with this client, let's prove our worth on a smaller scale, but then look to sort of build that out over a longer term. So it's getting through that type of mentality and sort of changing that. And I guess for the educational piece, like we mentioned, there's also an education for the publishers, like, so they can understand that. But certainly, like the quality, if you can find those publishers that do that, and we know, because we've worked in the industry for so long and worked on various different campaigns, we know which contacts and which partners are going to perform. And we can very simply like have a discussion with the client or see something that they have sent us in terms of like an idea or an approach, and we can immediately be like, okay, that's going to work, or it's not. So we can work quite quickly, but in terms of the data itself, like the quality it has to be there. Otherwise it's never going to be a sort of an activity that's going to have longevity. We're not going to have longevity in our roles if we're just constantly generating poor data. So
I'm curious, do you know how some of these affiliates kind of get started? I'm just kind of thinking it seems like, because no one just out of the blue comes up with a good list of data, right? I don't know if they're doing it via co-reg or what it is, how they start to build their list and refine it, and then send different offers and kind of build it into something that's more predictable. But what's your sort of, do you have any insight into sort of how these guys generally work?
I mean, yeah, you have your typical guys, right? They have your coverage paths, right? They generate data via coverage, so very cheap. They just want to build a database cheaply, right? So, 10 pence, 10p per lead, right? They just grow their database and then they send campaigns to that. So that's one way. There's also a second way where you can obviously write a blog, write like a community, right? You're offering something of value. So people sign up to your list organically, right? Like you have really good articles or you break the news down well, kind of like the Independent or like some of the Daily Mail sites, right? They have massive volumes of email lists, but those people want to join that, right? They weren't like forced via like a co-reg. You join to win a competition. You're just there for the content. So I think usually those publishers have the highest quality of data versus people that kind of do the co-reg path. So they give away a freebie once a month to one of the 1,000 people that sign up. So I think it's always when you have that value exchange, that's when the data is the highest quality for a publisher.
There's such a sweet spot, I feel, with like the types of publishers and the data and what the client is actually wanting. So like our main USP is like you pay purely on the lead. So like there's no additional cost to it. So you're paying purely on that performance, which pulls a client in, obviously, because they're like, great, I'm actually getting something back for every pound or dollar or euro, whatever it is. I'm getting something back for every time I'm investing, which is great for them. And it's a good selling tactic for us. However, like not all publishers can work in that way. So clients might be thinking, why don't you work with, this particular website, a Daily Mail or like blah, 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 whoever it is, but they necessarily won't be working on the same metric. They'll be expecting more tenancy activity, which obviously we can't then guarantee the performance for the clients. There's upfront investments, whatever they might be, but then obviously we don't know whether those consumers are actually going to go down and sign up. So, and then you get obviously the bottom end of the scale of like the sort of smaller publishers that work on a much smaller scale, have slightly different websites and maybe not necessarily exactly the audience you're trying to find. And it's more contextually led. So like a person is going onto the website to engage and sign up potentially, but you're not actually targeting them. You're not layering in any demographics or behavioral activity, that type of thing. So it's trying to find those people in the middle that are like, they can work on a strictly CPL basis, but then they can also deliver the scale and the quality that we're looking for. But that comes with time. Like that's what we've kind of built over the last, 6 years for me that I've been in the company, but then 2 or 3 years that Carol's been at CJ, but then much longer in the industry. Like that's the experience that we can bring to the table, is like we know which publishers can work in that way and which ones are going to work for the client. And that experience like is quite difficult to find like as a lead gen sort of specialist in the industry. So it's definitely like a USP for us to be able to have that knowledge.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's just kind of interesting to see, how it sort of all works behind the curtain. You got me thinking too, how much, we talked about this a little bit, but when I was running lead gen for both a lead gen company and then prior to that a mortgage and insurance company, fraud was a big issue. Now there's tools in place that you can monitor the easy stuff like the IP addresses and the bots. You can spot that stuff pretty quick if you have the tools in place, which are not hard to get. But how and I would say fraud was like pretty rampant back then. Fake data.
Back in the day, it was a lot, especially in America, because obviously I started off very early in the UK running lead gen, but when I was exposed to American clients, they were always said, "Oh, American data is like the worst. It's so many people. It's always bad quality," because there were such lax laws in America, right? You could build a database with no consent. You could just buy email addresses from an Excel sheet on an email in America. So that didn't obviously help the reputation of the quality of data in the US.
Yeah, back then it was crazy. I mean, obviously I think we now have pretty similar rules, to what you guys have there for the most part, with GDPR on your side, and we have TCPA on our side, and it's all around getting consent and all that sort of stuff. But What is it like today, like from your viewpoint? I mean, how, if there's like a percentage, is there a certain percentage of data that just isn't usually good that kind of you can expect to kind of come through the system on some campaigns? I'm not saying your campaigns or all the campaigns, but just generally in the industry, or is it much cleaner these days?
I'd say, again, it's so dependent on so many factors
Yeah.
in terms of that sort of cleaning rate. But we say about 20% of all data that we clean or that we see in terms of like a gross number of leads, 20% of that will be fraudulent, fake, duplications, that type of thing.
Yeah.
So
And you
it
guys are able
fluctuates in
to
terms of
spot that
the
and clean it
campaign.
out
But
before it goes
Yeah,
anywhere.
yeah, of course, of
yeah,
course,
yeah.
of course, of course.
Sorry,
yeah,
I interrupted you, Alex. Yeah.
No, that's fine. It's fine. I was going to say about the activity, like it fluctuates, like in terms of potentially what the offer is going to be. So if you imagine if we're promoting an incentive like a sample or a competition, people are going to want to sign up multiple times to either get that sample, 3, 4, 5 times, or have more entries to win that competition. So you're naturally going to see a higher rate of duplications, which obviously skews the actual data itself. But that's always what we say to clients. Like if you're not doing this type of activity and cleaning the data itself, potentially you're paying for 20% or wasting 20% of your revenue into leads that aren't actually going to convert. So that's how important it is to get it right. But then it also boils down to the publishers and the data again, because nothing is 100% safe. And there's always going to be a case of like some leads getting through, and that's what we need to caveat with the client. We can be as secure as you possibly can do and use all of the right tools to sort of fight that off. But it really does boil down to the publishers that you use and the data, because if we can get that right, and necessarily you won't have to lean on those lead cleaning platforms that much, but it's always good to have 2 levels of security. So making sure those publishers are verified, qualified, they're tested, we know their data is good, and then if something does get through, then we have that second level of security to be able to say, no, okay, we're going to reject those leads or we're going to accept them. As soon as we pass them back to the client, they're only seeing like the cleaned, valid data.
Yeah. Do you guys know? I know, obviously, when people run campaigns through you, you guys provide that a certain level of cleaning and monitoring. Do you know of any tools to mention to people out there that want some on-page sort of fraud detection or monitoring, services for their own site?
I mean, currently, because obviously we work with a tech vendor, we work with Dateable. I'm sure you've spoken with Simon, from Dateable. So obviously we partner with Dateable, and they handle all of our validation on the page. So obviously, while they're not a on the page service, they do offer validation. Because obviously you can use their platform to build your own website, right? So it's kind of all in one solution versus just a add-on validation tool. Because for us to have validation, you need to have data going to a validator, which is obviously it goes to the Dateable platform, it gets validated, then it gets outputted, right? So there needs to be that input of data to have validation.
Yep. I was thinking off the top here, at least here we have a couple different companies. It's a little bit different than Dateable that does some of that distribution and validation and on-page stuff. Let's see, we have a CPA Detective is one. Fraud.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah. They got the good name.
Fraud Logics with the X, I think, is one. Can't think. I think there's another. I can't think of it. But they'll monitor. They'll be on the page and they'll monitor that data. And ensure that it's not coming from a IP, a known risk, high risk IP address or groups of IPs and all this sort of stuff. And they'll monitor how, and a whole bunch of other stuff that I don't know about. But they'll be able to flag or sort of give scores to, hey, this looks like it could be fraudulent, or fake things coming in from, bots or whatever it may be. But I didn't know if there's any, companies you came across. It's always good, I think, to share some of this stuff.
Because I think validate when we were looking for a new validation vendor, we really needed like something that is like, you can scan everything, right? We don't want anything getting through. So I think with Datable, we do get a lot of granular, we can check if it's been validated based on IP, email, like dwell time. So it gets as nitty gritty as you can get it. So
yeah,
it's really good, really good.
I don't know if I told this story before, but it was probably about 6-7 years ago. Maybe not that long. I was working for a agency that was in the education industry. So we were working for for-profit education colleges and universities. So like online colleges, that sort of thing. And we had we were working with a lead gen company driving traffic to their form. Anyway, long story short, they had a partner that was, problematic in driving traffic, and they couldn't.
That's always a good way to explain it.
Yeah. And I knew these guys, and I knew right away that they were sending in, fraudulent traffic, just because I knew of them. I've been around this industry. I was like, this is a horrible source. You need to figure it out. And they were sending thousands of leads a day. I mean, maybe tens of thousands of leads a day. Tons of money, we're talking about. Yeah. And they couldn't figure it out. And I said, why don't you just do a quick search, look at the IP address location, figure out the IP location and the actual lead address and see if the distance, because generally an IP address is within, it's usually right where your home is or where your computer is. Sometimes it's within a mile. These were like 1,500 miles away from the address, so
on the lead,
lead. Yeah. So what they were doing clearly was they were buying groups of batches of IP addresses, and then attaching them and having the bot send it from those IP addresses, right? So and then putting the data in, and it would go in there. It would look like a human was putting the info in, but it was just a bot. But that was like a clear tell sign of like, okay, obviously these leads are bad. They're coming from, IP addresses, across the country and sometimes in other countries. And, you're just sort of making me think about, some of these things that you start to look for when you're trying to fight fraud, because they're smart. They're very, very smart.
I was going to say, but it's quite interesting because obviously you mentioned that example. Maybe like the IPs were probably good, all from the correct country, right? But what it kind of exposed everything was you eyeballing the data, right? You didn't just look at the valid lead, great, system checked it, but you actually read and did your own kind of eyeballing, which is kind of very important, right? So that personal human touch is still necessary, I find, along with a robust validation.
Yeah, but it's sort of knowing like, okay, this is what to look for, because that's the problem. Exactly. Sometimes it's hard because you're absolutely right. This is a real person, it's a real phone number, it's a real address. They match up, but then when you get them on the phone, they're like, I don't know anything about wanting to go back to school, or I filled that out 6 months ago, or I did this, or like you get all these different excuses. And then when you're the lead generation company, so you're the intermediary between the an affiliate,
you're responsible.
Well, you're not picking up the phone either, right? So the person you're selling the data to is picking up the phone, so you don't really have firsthand knowledge of what the conversations are. So it becomes hard to investigate some lead quality issues and get to the bottom of it.
It's so true. Like that, knowing what to look for is incredibly important. I had a similar thing a couple of weeks ago on a client call, and the client was doing they're an optician brand, so people were booking their free eye appointments online, and then they would obviously go into the optician and have it, and they were seeing that the cancellation rate was a lot higher than they were expecting. And we did a lot of work into like the publishers that we were using. We were only using one publisher at the time. Again, it was a trusted publisher. We used them on other activity before. We never had a problem like this before. So I was like, I'm pretty sure that this isn't like a problem on the back end, like with the publishers itself. It's actually what is going on with the data and the consumer behind that. And the client on the call was sort of querying it with us as well. And I was asking the right questions in terms of like, okay, so have you looked at the IP addresses like you mentioned, and sort of going into the basics? And I was like, have you looked at sort of the dwell time between someone actually making the appointment and then cancelling it? So like you'd imagine, like if you're a bot and you're just trying to get signups, the cancellation is probably going to come within a pretty quick time after they've booked the appointment. It's not likely that they're going to be waiting for, I don't know, 10 days and then cancelling. It makes sense they book the appointment, obviously our pixel fires, and then the cancellation comes. So I was like, why don't you look at that in terms of like the data itself? So if you are seeing that there's a very short window between someone actually making the appointment and cancelling, and it's a trend which is coming across basically all of the leads themselves, then you can understand, okay, that's probably a problem with the data. But if it's just a case of the cancellations are sort of coming from different places at different times and random dwell times, then you're probably better placed to say, okay, it's actually the consumer itself which is making the decision, and it's actually valid data itself. Plus, obviously, with COVID and everything and coming in and out of lockdown, it was, which makes more sense. A consumer, not wanting to go outside and go to an optician and not interact with people, it makes sense that they would actually cancel it after a 10-day period when the government releases more information or whatever it might be. So actually knowing that and being able to like give that, knowledge back to the client is like super, super helpful for them.
Yeah, and then you just start going down that path, right? Well, then, okay, what are we doing on our advertising, or what are we doing on our messaging to try to, ensure that there's, good intent, all that sort of stuff. But that's sort of that whole investigation thing, which, can be kind of fun sometimes, right? Going down and trying to solve a problem. You don't want to have a problem, of course. Those are never fun, dealing with clients. But at the same time, it is gratifying to go down that path and then find, some answers to why things were really happening and then be able to fix it. That's I mean, to me, that's kind of the enjoyable part about sometimes this job or industry we're in. Carol, you got any war stories like of a campaign that you like was
we had one
war story.
Of course.
How long is this podcast?
I have a few ones, but I think one recently we had one last year was for Black Friday. Obviously, we had a client wanting to collect an email address, and they were gonna basically mail out some discount codes for Black Friday. And obviously people would then purchase from those codes, right? So obviously campaign went well, the data quality was great, everything was validated, but obviously no sales happened from the leads that were generated with the discount code, right? Then we kind of dug in deeper with the publishers about why that happened, right? So publishers fed back as well, the discount code wasn't a lot. The brand name isn't as known in the US that was being promoted, and obviously in Black Friday you have Nike, Adidas, North Face, top tier brands giving out massive discounts. So this tiny little brand nobody heard of giving you 10% off won't really hook a person up versus like a Nike or an Adidas or NFL, you know what I mean? So that was kind of the feedback we generated from the publishers. And then, then ultimately we did our own research, and that was the case with the data, right? The data was good. It's just, it should have been done earlier before Black Friday or waited after Black Friday, right? To get some of that people that missed out on the deals, that were a bit late to take advantage of a discount code a week later.
So maybe not more recently, but in your lifetime, on the affiliate side, have you seen this sort of fraudulent stuff come across too, and how did you catch it?
Oh, I mean, sometimes, because obviously when I was running stuff back at my old job at Teradata, we were running some lead generation campaigns, and a lot of them were giving from an agency. So it would be us as an agency, and then we also had other agencies have the same budget, right? So we were kind of competing against each other who drove the best quality. And then I would scan the other publishers, how their publishers were running the campaign. And I saw a lot of them, I saw a lot of their ads like on mobile ads. I saw them, and it was like an email only campaign. And I saw their ads running everywhere but email, for example, right? But obviously client was like, oh, they're driving so much volume, like this is great. But then we were driving considerably less volume, but it was as instructed, right? Fixed copy, no incentivization, right? Email only. So obviously, I said, okay, well, we'll see end of the month who's the winner. And then obviously, yes, they got dropped from the plan just because they were, driving loads of instant traffic, just going for that pure sign up versus trying to find a good data set that will ultimately benefit from being exposed to the campaign. So that's kind of just following the data.
Yeah. What do you think today is the biggest challenge or problem in the, quote unquote affiliate marketing lead gen space? It's a big question, but I'm just kind
That's
of
a
curious.
big question. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, is there something that this
Very big question.
is sort of an ongoing challenge that would be nice if we could fix it? Is
Okay.
it? I mean, is it still just lead quality?
Don't put me on the spot.
Transparent?
I would say
Transparency
it's
or?
not. No, I don't think transparency. No, I would say maybe communications, just finding the right people, because everybody's everywhere, right? We kind of proven that. You can do lead gen in every country, right? But just maybe figuring out better ways to connect with those kind of obscure geos, and connecting them with clients like us, right? Advertisers that have budgets, right? So, some of that more, and especially in the context of lead generation, not just affiliates, right? Because anybody can promote a sale, but can you find that lead data, that email data, right? That's interested in hearing about new stuff, right? Like we're promoting. So, I would say that, like, connecting up publishers and clients.
Yeah, I definitely think there's so many like points that we could discuss, but I think that data really is like the crux of it itself, and the quality. If you look at lead generation itself, you are building a CRM. You're not building actions or purchases. So the idea being that you are nurturing that data to then go on and make a purchase at a later date. So at the bare bones of it, if you're generating poor quality, they're not going to convert. Therefore, it's not going to back out as a positive ROI. So if you can get that right, then it's great. But definitely transparency has been a big talking point, like over the last couple of years, with big brands coming out and saying they want more transparency with their activity. Like the CEO of P&G came out famously 2 or 3 years ago and said exactly that. And it wanted to put on hold on all of the activity that they're doing in their marketing mix, and they request more transparency. Whereas, that has a knock-on effect with us, because we open ourselves up to potentially being cut out of the process if we're open with the publishers that we're using. However, we've had to pivot as a company to align to that as well, because I do understand it from the client's point of view. If it was me and I was looking after a client's budget and agency, or if it was my company itself that I was investing in, I'd want to know what is going on and like how my dollars are being spent, type thing. So it's trying to like understand from both points of view how we can like work together. But the transparency piece, absolutely, like a big talking point, and something that we always come up against with clients. And then the data quality, making sure that you are using the right publishers, and the cleaning aspect, to make sure that ROI at the end of it is performing. Because way too many times, like, we have client conversations where they're like, yeah, we did, we tested lead gen and it didn't back out, or there's a lot of fraudulent activity that came about from it, or we tested Facebook and it didn't perform like as we wish. So it's making sure at the start we can be as honest, as truthful, as transparent with the way in which it actually works, and making sure that those publishers at the start, when the client is testing, are high quality. Then they are bought into the activity, and we can make sure that that's an ongoing relationship that we can grow.
So I'm curious, are there any like new, industries that you're seeing, maybe not necessarily on your network, or it could be, that are, popping up that are sort of interesting, or new campaigns that are like very unique, that you've kind of seen? I mean, because we all know the big ones, right? You already mentioned streaming, that is a big part of it, and insurance, and
I would say
anything new over last time we spoke.
I would say recently I started getting a lot of gambling clients, but the gambling clients in the context of video games. Like, a lot of these games now have like almost gambling built in. Like, you could pay a token in the game and you get like a random weapon item, or a skin for a weapon, or a character skin. And there's a lot of gambling sites that are also involved in that. For example, like you put money to gamble, and then you get like a skin back, or a weapon for your in-game item. So there's a lot of stuff like that, and also betting on professional gaming as well. People that play professionally, I had a client actually with a call yesterday that was interested in driving additional deposits for his video gaming website. So.
Oh, so like so they can stream and watch it, like a subscription type based thing.
Yeah, yeah, and not that exactly, but it's like you bet. It's like you betting on video game matches instead of
You're
sports. So
betting
it's like
on
a
it.
yes, so like oh, team A beats team B in
Yeah,
this
yeah.
video game. So it's quite cool. Yeah. So it's a lot of gambling in
I'm
that
not
space.
surprised. Yeah, I mean, gaming has been, I mean, so massive. Growing so quickly, and these I don't know, YouTuber, Twitch, whatever it is, guys
Yeah,
are
it's
making
huge.
a boatload of money with the views and their subscriptions to watch them play video games. It's quite
Mm,
wild.
Mm.
mm,
Yeah,
Um,
I'd say the sort of B2B space for me is starting to like get back to its original best. We're having a lot of conversations, both myself and Carol, but interestingly, the ones that are coming out at the moment are sort of finance led. And one
mm,
at the moment that I'm having a sort of positive discussion with is about how businesses can unlock equity or financing on their unpaid invoices. So if you imagine you've got a load of invoices out to a certain amount of stakeholders that haven't been paid, you can actually use those unpaid invoices and borrow money against them. And with the effects of COVID at the moment and just absolutely smashing businesses, which has been awful, and so many that are now going under. This is a really important like piece of software and a business that can actually help like in the short term. So that's certainly something that we're going to be looking to onboard over the next couple of months while we start to move out of the the lockdown and what have you, because like we said at the start, it's been such a long time now. And if you imagine like pubs and restaurants and clubs and these businesses that haven't been open for such a long period of time and potentially up to a year, they haven't generated any revenue. So if you can borrow against those unpaid invoices and potentially save your business in the long term, then it's like something you can actually help like people in the industry and help B2B companies and consumers. So that's certainly something that we'll be looking at. But B2B as a vertical itself, definitely sort of getting back to sort of the power that it was before lockdown and COVID.
So before we head out, just along those same lines, are there any? Let's see. You mentioned insurance that you're looking for pubs into, right? And what anything else that specifically stand out that you guys are looking for?
For my stuff, like as I mentioned, like the B2B activity, we're always looking to scale that up with the publishers. So if there's anyone in the business space, absolutely. In terms of the markets as well, as you mentioned, like Australia is a big growth point for us, and we're looking to upscale that massively with onboarding of plenty of new streaming services and new clients in that space. So if there's any publishers that have data in Oz as a market, or if they have certain segments, then please do reach out to us as well. But we're always open to a discussion. Like if you've got some data there that you want to unlock and you think it's going to be a good fit for a certain client, then please do reach out and we'll have those sort of top line discussions and see whether there's an opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah, just join the CJ network, right? You might not work with us specifically, but CJ affiliate has loads of different campaigns and verticals and clients you can get exposed to as well, right? Not necessarily specifically us as the CPL team, but I guess from my side, just US, if you have US insurance data in the US, get in touch. And then also I have another client promoting CBD products. So if you have a CBD blog or you have data in the UK that would be would CBD products would be relevant to, get in touch as well, because that's a big push in the UK as well. The growth of CBD and like the talks of possibly further legalization of the product in the UK. So
that's what I was just going to ask you. I didn't know what was legal there and what
it's
is it.
decriminalized. I think the use of cannabis and then CBD stuff, but it's not like legal like in America.
Like you can't buy it. You can't go to a store and buy it necessarily. You get a medical or go through a doctor of some sort. Or
I think CBD you can buy. Yeah, CBD you can buy at
CBD
the
you
store.
can.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, I think they're looking at the federal government looking at legalizing it federally, because that's one of the problems here is that we've got all these different states and they have their different rules. And so like California, where I am, it's legal, but the federal government, it's still illegal. So the federal government could, FBI could come in and, arrest an owner. They're not doing it, but they were for a little bit, and it was causing, problems. But, and that's real big here too. So there's a lot of individual, affiliates working in that CBD marijuana space as well. But well, good stuff, man. I really appreciate you guys getting on and talking a little shop. It's always fun just to see what's going on over there in the affiliate world and lead gen world over in the UK. Hopefully we'll do it again down the road. I'll be in touch with you guys with regards to the virtual conference we'll be doing. And if anybody, wants information on that, just go to leadgenerationworld.com and sign up for the newsletter. And that way you'll get notifications. But man, I appreciate you both. I wish you a good evening, and we'll do this again soon.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you for
Appreciate that.
Thank you, Michael. Right. Always fun.
Care.
See you soon.
Yeah, always good.